including thank you everyone for joining us. I recognize some of the familiar faces, Bridget, Camry Moss. I think they are previous students in this program. Some of the new faces, I think in the current program, those are undergraduate students as well as graduate students. I think I'm starting, I'm gonna share my screen. And I want to start with some of the, I want to give a brief introduction in terms of human-centered design. The first thing is in terms of why, in terms of human-centered, why do we want to do this? I think based on a lot of experience in our daily life, you might find confusions or errors, frustrations when interacting with everyday life products of things. And I think I showed this example in my class when we can look at the Norman door, which is a very good example in terms of the motivations for human-centered design.
There's this door on the 10th
Can you guys hear?
So much.
Have you seen people misuse it? Me too, Kelsey. But here's the thing. As soon as you start looking for confusing doors, they are everywhere. It's push. Why?
Sorry, something happened to the sound. It disappeared suddenly. Sarah, where are you able to hear the sound?
Yeah, I could hear it very faintly.
Yeah, it is fainted.
He is the norm of the norm. You must go to San Diego. Well, he's been a professor of psychology, professor of cognitive science, professor of computer science, a vice president of advanced technology at Apple. But for our purposes,
I was spending a year, and I got so frustrated with my year. And the doors, and we got this. If I continue to get.
can you guys hear?
Very little.
It's fainted. We hear nothing.
Yeah.
Is it better?
No. In fact, if you continue to get it wrong, is it good? And if other people continue to get it
Can you rewind, because from the beginning we couldn't hear.
A Norman door is one where the design tells you to do the opposite of what you're actually supposed to do. Are you guys able to hear it?
Yeah, we could hear it now.
Okay.
Can you start all over again?
Okay. I think it's because the speakers.
wrong. Pretty regularly. Have you seen people misuse it? Me too, Kelsey. But here's the thing. As soon as you start looking for confusing doors, they are everywhere. It's push. Why? I feel like Roman Mars would know that.
This is 99% invisible. And those doors you built are called Norman doors.
What's a Norman door?
The essential.
The Norman of the Norman door.
All right, and where is this?
You must go to San Diego.
I'm Don Norman. Gee, you know, it's hard to describe what I am.
Well, he's been a professor of psychology, professor of cognitive science, professor of computer science, a vice president of advanced technology at Apple. But for our purposes,
I was spending a year in England, and I got so frustrated with my inability to use the light switches and the water taps and the doors even, that I wrote this book. If I continually get a door wrong, is it my fault? No. In fact, if you continually get it wrong, is a good, but if other people continually get it wrong, good sign that it's a really bad door.
A Norman door is one where the design tells you to do the opposite of what you're actually supposed to do, or gives the wrong signal and needs a sign to correct it.
Why does it need an instruction manual? That is, why do you have to have a sign that says push or pull? Why not make it obvious?
It can be obvious if it's designed right.
There are a couple of really simple, basic principles of design, and one of them I'll call discoverability. When I look at something, I should be able to discover what operations I can do.
The principle applies to a whole lot more than doors.
And it's amazing with many of our computer systems today. You look at it, there's no way of knowing what's possible. Should I tap it once, twice, or even triple tap? So discoverability, when it's not there, well, you don't know how to use something.
Another is feedback.
And so many times there's no feedback. You have no idea what happened or why it happened.
And these principles form the basis of how designers and engineers work today, commonly known as user or human-centered design.
I decided at one point the word user was a bit degrading. Why not call people people? And it's amazingly simple and amazingly seldom practiced. We call it iterative because it goes around in a circle. We go out and we observe what is happening today. We observe people doing the task. And from that, we say, oh, we have some ideas. Here's what we should perhaps propose to do.
Then you prototype your solution and test it.
Quite often, these are wrong at first. But each time we go around the circle, we do a better job of making the device until the point where we're actually making something that really works.
And this process has spread all over the world.
And it turns out it's improving lives.
From better everyday things like the ones that Don wrote about,
To using the same process to solve huge problems in public health in developing countries.
water,
Sanitation,
farming.
lots more. So would it be a better human-centered door?
An ideal door is one that as I walk up to it and walk through it, I'm not even aware that I had opened the door and shut it. So if you had a door which had a flat plate, what could you do? Nothing. The only thing you can do is push. So see, you wouldn't need a sign. A flat plate, you push.
This kind of push bar with the piece sticking out on one side works well too. So you can see what side you're supposed to push them.
Vertical bars could go either way. A simple little hand thing, though, sort of indicates pull.
But we still have terrible, terrible doors in the world. So many of them.
There are lots of things in life that are fairly standardized, and therefore, whether I buy this house or not is not a function of whether it has good doors in it. And so, except for safety reasons, doors tend not to be improved.
But the tyranny of bad doors must end.
I think that it's a really shitty design. In fact, they put a pull handle when it's a push. And it should be a flat panel right here. And not a pull handle. That's how I feel about this. It's very misleading.
You're right, Becky. You're goddamn right. And if we all thought like you, well, we might just design a better world together.
It won't open because it's a security door. What the f are you two?
Okay, I think, let me find my slides. I think this explains why human-centered design is important. And I think there are so many other examples in our daily life. You always find confusion, errors, or frustration, and that where human-centered design comes into play. In the next, I want to give a very brief introduction in terms of, I think a lot of students in my class will know this process in terms of from the Stanford D School. We call this 5-stage process from empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And we can divide this into two big stages. The first one is to find the right problem through empathy, through user research and product or problem definition. And then through ideate, prototype, and testing, we're trying to find the right solution. In here, I do not want to go too very deep in terms of these different stages, but later we're going to show some of the examples or activities in terms of doing how to frame your design problem, how to do idea generation. We do have George, do you think, I don't know in terms of exactly process, my presentation might last a while?
I mean, you are introducing the design process, correct? Or
we're gonna have presentations from previous students talking about the experience in this program as well as their job experience, things like that.
Okay, I mean, as you wish. I mean, we can talk if you want us to introduce the design process. Delian can do that. If you want me and Sarah to introduce the prototyping process, we can work on it. It's up to you. Whenever you want us to start to do our short presentation, maybe it's a very short presentation, you just let us know.
Okay. I think then we can start from Delian in terms of there are different like variations in terms of human-centered design process. I think after we know overall in terms of what this process is, then we're gonna let our students or previous students to talk about their experience in this program, as well as their job experience. And then after that, we're gonna have some hands-on activities. So Dylan, why don't you start to talk about your perspective about human-centered design?
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Can I get screen share privileges? Now I have them. Oh, not yet. Perfect. Thank you. All right, so as mentioned, I'm going to talk about kind of what is engineering design. My name is Delian Tolbert Smith. I'm a fellow faculty member of my colleagues here at U of M Dearborn. And I'm really excited about design. And so I'll talk a bit about some of the different approaches. As Fung mentioned, there isn't a one unified model for design. In fact, as many of us know, it's hard to even define and agree on a definition for. But I want to just give us a little bit of a backdrop into what it is and some different perspectives. I like this quote that I read actually this week. Science can amuse and fascinate us all, but it is engineering that changes the world. And this was a biochemistry professor and an American author. Now we know that there are lots of disciplines that we work across as engineers. We work across many different sectors and in teams, and it's the second largest profession in the nation, the United States. And if you think about all of these different, we cross so many different boundaries as engineers, it's natural that we will start to see some design challenges, some opportunities and problems that require different ways of thinking. Now, when we look at engineering design, these problems, and those who work outside of engineering design, just in design in general, you'll notice that some of these problems people call wicked problems, complex problems. They can be ill-defined. It may be initially, once you read, get access to these problems, the purpose is not always very clear. We have to do a lot of work to understand, to define them. They're not always structured. You know, typically in engineering, especially with our math and science backgrounds, we try to look for a methodical way to converge on a specific way to solve a problem and to get the one correct, unique solution. And often design problems just aren't that well structured to apply that. So we have to have different methods. And finally, they're open-ended. There are usually several acceptable solutions, but we have to consider requirements, we have to consider constraints, and we have to be flexible as we solve these problems. Many of you may be familiar, but a lot of us in engineering are familiar with the grand challenges of engineering developed by the National Academies of Engineering. And I present these so that we can kind of see why we would need to even have multiple types of design approaches or design processes to address these problems. Now, engineering design and the history of this, it's not new. So while the terminology and the methods may have emerged in the past 30 to 50 years, and we're starting to see more acceptance about this process, and it's starting to span across different disciplines. If we look throughout history, we can see that humans have been designing for a long time. And we have examples of engineering design throughout antiquity, including the Great Pyramids of Egypt. We have the Mayan cities and temples in South America. We have the Great Wall of China. We have other structures that if we were to look for blueprints, we may not find. We may not be able to document exactly how they were accomplished. We don't really know. There aren't records, although could be some different types of histories. And so part of doing design work in modern day is to understand how even older structures and products were developed so that we can record even blueprints and to understand how they work and to improve them. So there are a few different ways of thinking. So my work, I'll share a more elementary process because I do a lot of design work with K-12, but the Boston Museum of Science developed the engineering as elementary model, where they've identified 5 key steps of design. So that's ask, imagine, plan, create, and improve. And this is something even as an engineering professor and as one who teaches engineering design to college students, I try to even remind them of these basic steps because it's a part of developing a mindset. We also have the design for in Six Sigma, excuse me, and where another process of solving problem, defining, measuring, analyzing, design, optimizing, and verifying. And you'll kind of see that there's a similar thread of that first step being understand the problem. And especially with the specifics in Six Sigma being using statistical and analytical tools to understand the data and to make data informed decisions that address how you want to improve or optimize a system, a process, or a product. And then you notice at the end is verify. The language might appear different, but the heart of this process is similar, but it depends on your discipline and how it is enabled. We talked about this human-centered design. So many of you may be familiar with the Stanford D School, and a lot of our design thinking has come, and a lot of our language has come from this D School, and we kind of are affected by it. And this really helped us to focus on, as we saw in the video, the human. So this human-centered aspect means to center the human and understand who they are, what their needs really are, and to even challenge our assumptions as designers, as engineers, that we may place on the circumstance, on the individual that we're designing for, on the system we're designing for. And it always allows us to center them as part of the process. So we get to check, using the human-centered design process, we get to check our bias, we get to work with others, we get to work with the people we are designing for. They may be an active part of the team, or we may engage them at several parts of the process. It's one that's very mindful because it's human-oriented. And there's a huge culture of prototyping and presenting a workable model to the individual, the target human or user, and getting their feedback. And this is one that is really transforming organizations all over the world. We're seeing more and more organizations talk about human-centered design. And then this is one that was developed by I call her my research grandmother, Cindy Atman, out of Washington, and where they did research working with expert designers and comparing them to novice designers. And they were able to identify specific steps within specific design stages, where design stages are the problem scoping stage, trying to understand what's happening with this specific problem. This stage of developing alternative solutions within which you will generate ideas at your best realization. You start communicating the aspects of the design, you start prototyping it and testing it, and then you implement it based off of feedback. And these steps are those that we can use even in teaching design or in enacting design ourselves. So high-level ground rules for engineering design. First is to think outside the box. Crazy, wild ideas are welcome in this process. They're out and select, but first start with out-of-the-box crazy ideas. I often recommend that as engineering designers, we carry notebooks or ways to document our ideas and our concepts, because you never want to, you don't never know when an idea is coming, but we always want to create documentation for what we're doing. Another Another ground rule is to team effectively. You want to work well with the people around you, regardless of their discipline, and really leverage everyone's expertise towards solving a common design goal, and then ultimately to have fun. That's what I have. Thanks.
George, is it Sarah? Okay, sorry.
Oh,
Sarah,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Sarah Nesbitt. I teach applied art over in Castle at University of Michigan, Dearborn. And I will be talking about the low fidelity prototype process. So I'm just gonna share my screen. Oh, okay. I guess I have to be the co-host for that.
You are.
Oh, technology.
1 second.
Okay,
I think you
here.
are the
Oh.
co-host. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it looks like I've got that access now. Yay. Yay, technology. All right. Let's see. Okay, so I just wanted to mention, I do have some examples by one of our students that is on the Zoom call, Bridget Burke. So you may be seeing some familiar items that you have worked on in the advanced digital design class. So a low fidelity prototype is where you get to create a rough draft of your idea. And usually where people get maybe a little stuck at this stage, but this is where I try to encourage, where I try to encourage people, like, don't be afraid to fail. Whatever, you want to put out there, just draw it out, sketch it out, rearrange it, anything like that, because that's part of the low fidelity prototype process. And this stage is aimed for others to be able to give you constructive feedback, because it provides a visual example of like what you're trying to go for. So on this slide right here, we can see a couple of examples of a low fidelity prototype, right? It could be something as basic as a sheet of paper and a pen and just drawing it out. And you can use like tape, scissors, if you could find it, find scissors at your house. I always lose my scissors. But in this case, I had a student who just ripped her pieces of paper and then rearranged them, right? So you could create one where you're able to move things around and organize like what you have. And I have another example here of another low fidelity prototype of an application. So in this case, instead of just jumping right into like working in like or right into like developing a whole application, like you're able to sketch out your ideas and work and what wouldn't work at this stage. So we've got an example. Yeah, and again, materials could be as basic as a pen and paper. I have a marker here, but write and implement in paper, and you're welcome to bring in other materials too, or use other materials if you'd like. Whatever would help present your project in the best way of what you have. And then another example here where Bridget constructed a whole computer in order to demonstrate her low fidelity prototype. So creating one shouldn't take long to do. It's again just a rough draft of your idea or of your creation, and it is aimed for others to give constructive feedback on your project. And I have an example here of a student, oh, yeah, where she's demonstrating her low fidelity prototype. And you could see she just used something as simple as a small pad of paper to be able to demonstrate how to navigate through her project. So I'll do this. Is the audio working? No? Oh, okay. Oh, actually, I don't think the audio is needed for this. So it just has like a fun tune to it. So yeah, so you could even see she's demonstrating by like pushing on what would be the buttons and like what the next screen, what the next screen would go to after pushing that button. And then look for common vacation spots and then go into the page or the screen for that. Yeah. Yeah, so very, very basic, very simple. You don't have to spend a lot of money for it, which is great because you don't want to spend too much money on something that you might end up omitting certain pieces too. So yeah, and yeah, and George will be able to talk about the next step, which would be the high fidelity prototype.
As my colleagues already mentioned, the steps of design always start with empathy. You have to identify a problem, ask the right question to the community you want to serve, or the group of people you want this your solution to serve, and start ideation. And the ideation step where you start thinking about, as Delian mentioned, the wild solutions you can find. And after discussing and brainstorming, you will be able to go down to few solutions. And those solutions needs to be materialized. They need to be tested. And you don't want to start by testing a solution by writing a code, for example, for the whole app. Instead, you do a low fidelity prototyping, as my colleague Sarah mentioned, and the solution again, the majority of the solutions we will be offering, since those are technological solutions, they require some engineering or scientific knowledge. For example, in coding, if it is an app, or in mechanical engineering, if it is a mechanical solution, and electrical engineering, if it's an electrical solution. And the majority of the time, it's a combination of all those. Now you have your Hoover, or the automated aspirator that is a mechanical, that has an electronic component and has an app to control it. Even even the cars now, they are being designed that way. They are mechanical with a lot of electronic components, and you have an app to control it. So the solutions, because the needs are evolving, the solutions can be a little bit more complex. You don't want to go directly by building the whole thing. Instead, you start with very cheap tools to materialize your 3D idea, and present it to your friends to see what they think about it. Present it also to potential financer who will be, okay, this idea will be great. I will give you the money so you can move forward with the design process. And then at a given point, you want to build your structure, your idea or your solution. And if it is a product that is a digital product, you need to associate with someone who knows how to code, a software engineer, an application engineer, or web page. You need someone who needs to code to be able to create this web page. However, you have to present them with an idea and a clear way of the idea and a clear sequence of what you need. Now, when you are doing physical, and there are digital tools that allows you to present your idea correctly. And whenever it is a physical product, a mechanical product, or an electrical product, you need to present them with CAD designs. So CAD designs allow you to materialize your product in a virtual world, but in a 3D virtual world where the product has the exact dimensions, it has the exact components in it, and the exact space that will occupy. And then it can be a simple product as a chair with the exact right dimension, or it can be a complex product like a whole vehicle or a whole airplane. And each part are designed separately and joined together to give this visual to the chief engineer, for example, or to the person who will go to execute your designs. For example, for the chair, and also it needs to be a repeatable process. That's why those kind of tools are important, because it should not be just in your head. It should be a blueprint like that, so someone else will take those blueprints and will be able to execute the process again. So, and then once you design those things virtually, you have several possibilities. And the cheapest ones are building your solution using 3D printing. So, and 3D printing is the fastest prototyping technique that can print all the parts of your solution at exact dimensions or at the reduced dimension, depends on you, and you are able to test. The purpose is to get as much feedback as possible in the design step before getting the whole solution to the consumer. And because once you get it to the consumer, the first impression is very important. It is hit or lose. So you want to get as many possibly tests and feedback before finalizing the product. And that's why you prototype. And you prototype different levels. You have those low fidelity, and then you move to higher fidelity prototyping. And you have also a less or more expensive prototyping techniques. You have the less expensive, mainly 3D printing. The more expensive is machining, where you are using more advanced technological equipment to execute your designs. Now, after validating your design and getting all the prototypes, iterating and improving, then you have to decide on the production. What do you want to produce? If it is a physical product, electronic or mechanical, you have to use some technologies that are economically sustainable and will produce the product with a lower cost possible. So you need your solution to be accessible to as many people as possible, and that's why you need to optimize the price. And that's why you have so many technological solutions that are available. You can choose from them, and you need to be very careful. You want to cast your product, you want to machine it, you want to use metal deforming processes, you want to metal form it. So, and also how to connect the different parts together. And now you should always remember, it doesn't end there. A product life doesn't end after producing the product. This is the step to continuity. So you need to continuously get the feedback from the consumer and release updated products and that meets the needs of the consumers. The consumers are never the same, or the users are never the same, and it evolves with time. And you have to evolve your design and your ideas with time. Thank you.
Thank you, George. I think next we're gonna goes to the presentations from previous students. Can you guys see the screen? And I think the first one, let's welcome Bridget.
Hi, I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
All right. So everybody see that? All right. Okay, thank you. So I am going to talk briefly about our final presentation project we did for the MS HCD capstone project. So the name of our project was Take a Hike. It was myself, Landy Berry, and Jack Ruggless on the team. We formed in September of 2020, and we worked together until April of 2021. I am a front-end developer and accessibility specialist. I work at the University of Michigan Library in Ann Arbor. We knew right from the beginning that we wanted to do a project that was based on helping people around the outdoors. So our project was examining outdoor recreational activities and services in order to help people understand what spaces were best for them and how to remove barriers around those spaces. Why we wanted to do this was we had found this quote from the CDC that in July of 2020, they wrote that people, when they have access to parks and spaces outdoors, engaged in physical activity, it was beneficial for both physical and mental health. And we knew with the onset of COVID that a lot of Michiganders were looking to get outdoors, and it was clear to us that the state parks in Michigan would benefit from development of like a universal solutions. We started off doing a lot of user research, explored a lot of different themes around outdoor accessibility and recreation. So looking at trail design and wayfinding, we did comparative analysis of the current situations that were in the parks, like the trail markers and wayfinding in museums. We gave out a lot of surveys, and we formed personas based on the survey results in order to figure out how to address the needs of people. We ideated on a lot of different ideas, many different types of activities that we learned in a FENGS class and drew many, many sketches. And we had found a lot of different solutions that we really liked when we came together as a team to talk about it. So we decided to create not just do and people on trails, and we came up with these design concepts. So we wanted to do a digital message board. So here are some low fidelity design concepts that we did. We wanted to work on trail markers on the trails. We wanted to think about trail pacing. So if someone wanted to take a break while they're on a trail or needed to sit, then it would have that kind of information. And also safety was one of the top things that people reported back on in the surveys. So we really wanted to think about how we could address safety on the trail, especially for solo hikers or hikers that had any sort of disability. We created 3D prototypes and many different designs. So this was a really fun because we were able to use lots of different types of software. We use Adobe XD, Blender, all sorts of different softwares. So for our final designs, we had redone a high fidelity prototypes for the DNR recreation site. And here is an example of the accessibility page that we did. We ended up adding a little recreation helper chat as well. And that was really fun to look into needs for that. And we also did a digital message board. So this would have an interactive display with visual and auditory feedback on the display. And this would be at the trail head for like a trail. And then we also had designs for trail markers. So these are exciting because we were thinking a lot about cost. So you could have, they were modular, so you could add different features to a trail marker. So there would always be sort of the analog trail information at the top that would give you information about the length of the trail, where a rest would be on the trail, a grade of the trail. And then also you could add these digital signs to them, and they would give you notifications about problems maybe on the trail. So if a tree limb came down in a storm, and then you have trouble if you had an assisted device to get over a trail part, then you would know that from just looking at the beginning of the trail, not when you get halfway through the trail. And also having some like tactile devices for auditory feedback as well. And then the safety button was really fun. So this would be, ideally you would be able to reserve this online, or you go to a trail when you get there and you can grab one, and it has a snap and clip design. And when you press a button, it gives you auditory feedback. There's also visual feedback on a button press and an emergency button. We had some, Jack had made some really nice designs based on our physical solutions. I don't want to go too far into this, but just to show that we would create a journey to be able to show how someone would come to a trailhead and how they would use the trail markers, and how we would be able to make decisions on which trail to use based on that information. So what we did overall is we created the digital to physical experience for Michigan State Parks. It was important for us to work for Michigan because we want to design for our community. And we made improvements for both planning and actually participating in hikes. And we learned so much more about how universal design is imperative for outdoor spaces, especially make them accessible for more people. Just to do a quick share about my experience in this program. So I have a background in psychology and art. I am not an engineer, but I am an IT professional, and I make digital web applications and I do accessibility evaluations. So I really did join this program to learn more about how to make better products and services. The program itself, like the courses are great, really well done, carefully crafted, expertly delivered. All of our faculty are extremely professional, knowledgeable, and encouraging. It's great to see how much great professional practice and research and publications that they all are doing. The group work in this program is foundational. That goes into the idea of practice. There's a lot of design in the world, but we want to make sure that we are intentional and inclusive in the design that we do. And this program was all about becoming the best designer I could be and making things that matter. So it wasn't just design in theory, but it was actually design in practice. And it was really invaluable. It was a great program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bridget. I want to give the audience like 1 or 2 questions if they have anything they want to ask before we go to the next presentation. Anyone?
I have a question.
Sure.
So I know that they talked a little bit about like some of their background, but like I'm coming from a place where I don't have really any knowledge on any type of like digital design software or really any type of prototyping usefulness tools. What do you guys feel like is a good way to kind of get the skills and the knowledge set digital design right now, but is there any other places you guys would recommend to get to the same skill set that you guys have clearly displayed?
I can talk briefly first, and I think that the groups were all really varied in my capstone groups and throughout the program. I feel like we happen to have a lot of design people that had design backgrounds in my group, but that wasn't always the same. So I think that, but one tool I would recommend is that what I use all the time these days is Figma. It's a free tool, and the Figma education and the Figma videos that are online are like amazing to even just to get started. So if you want to start learning, I would definitely recommend that, but also not to be scared off by that idea. If you see like when we spent a lot of time and years over working on these kind of like prototypes, to work with prototypes and do hands-on activity.
It makes me feel
We
like I'm in Sarah's class, right?
We also see Camry Moss as playing with tools. Camry, do you want to expand a little bit?
Yes, for sure. So basically what Bridget was saying, Figma is a great tool, and really the biggest concept is not to be afraid or scared of failure. I think really a lot of us in the program sort of learned as we went on, and we just played with tools, sort of saw what worked for us, whether it was Adobe XD or Figma or more visual design like you saw with the Take a Hike project. So it's really about being creative, being ready to learn, and just sort of finding what works best for you.
Thank you, Cameron. And also thank you, Landy Hookin, for you making this. So we're gonna go to the next presentation. I wonder if Elliot is in here. I think she's not here, right? Let me share my screen. I think she's not here. Is she here? Otherwise, we're gonna go to Camry Moss. So it will be your turn.
Okay, let me try to share my screen. Okay, can everybody see the presentation?
Sure, yes.
Now I wanted to see if I can present. Okay, sweet. So hello, everyone. My name is Camry Morris. Sorry, let me go back. Oh no. Sorry. I don't Dr. Kim. So a little bit about this. The project was a research study to design a user-friendly platform where the user could sell or buy their household items to or from their neighborhood and their local community. So the project aimed to tackle the problem of trying to get goods for cheap or just selling used items that you no longer need, and finding out existing issues that people sort of have with the marketplace issues that marketplace services that we have on the market today. So we sort of followed this design process. We talked about a little bit in the beginning of this workshop, but we wanted to understand and define our problem, conduct a user study so that we can better understand the user's issues, frustrations, and requirements. We held brainstorming sessions to come up with fun and innovative ideas. We prototyped on this, on our ideas, and developed both wireframes and high fidelity prototypes. And then we tested it. We performed usability testing with users to understand the pain points with our current prototype, and so that we could iterate on that and put forth different solutions. So our problem was that the current marketplace does not offer like a good platform where people can not only sell their household items, but also just easily start their own business, such as selling homemade food. And buying and selling used goods is sort of a hassle that was not always a user-friendly platforms. So the objective was sort of to just generate ideas and concepts from the respondents so that we could better design a user-friendly application. So some of the steps that we took for our user study was benchmarking. So we gathered a bunch of information from marketplace services that are on the market today for things such as Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and things such as that. We conducted interviews so that we can understand the individual's preferences of these services, and also focus groups so that we could sort of get a discussion going and a dialogue going where people felt comfortable to vent their frustrations and also share their experiences. So in benchmarking, these are just a couple of key insights that we saw. I won't go too in depth about all of the user feedback that we got from this, but just a high level overview of all of the steps that we took. We conducted interviews. This gave us insights such as discounts and pretty much things that users would like to see in an application. As well as focus groups where we got generated some cool ideas where we saw ideas such as security, and also delivery services with pay options and also without paying options. And we sort of took all of this information that we compiled and put it into a big board in Miro, and sort of just sectioned off all of our ideas that we generated. And we got two pretty much main themes from this, and noticed that users pretty wanted the application to be convenient. They want it to be reliable. So they want to be able to trust this application. You know, you're talking with people that you may not know, although they're in your community. So you want to feel that you can trust this application with your personal information, and also with just your items. And also wanted to build a community. So you want to keep people engaged. You want to build community with your community. And you want to be able to have that open dialogue and that relationship between sellers and buyers. So we held like a brainstorming session where we sort of generated a bunch of ideas, and then we filtered those ideas down to see which ones were more feasible, and what would be the best solution really to implement these ideas into our designs. I'm going to go a little bit into our personas that we generated from the user studies that we conducted, as well as scenarios. Personas are sort of just a representation of your audience, of your user market. And we created these from the data that we gathered. This is one of our personas. She's a graduate student, single, no children. The purpose of personas is just to give a general overview of sort of your target market and people that might use your service. And there are a lot of different ways that you can do personas. And this is just a glimpse of one of our storyboards that we did. This is going over a doctor who wants to eat healthier and doesn't want to eat fast food all the time when they're in the middle of their breaks. So they're using this service to order homemade food from people in their community. This is an overview of one of our wireframes. So we talked a little bit about wireframes earlier, but this is just a short glimpse at the first iterations of our design. And of course, when you're designing apps, it's important to, before generating a bunch of solutions and getting in depth into your design software, that you have a general idea of what you want your information architecture to look like. So we took the time to sort of plan out what the function of our app would look like, and how features would play out. We then began to prototype. I will show a couple of images from our prototype. It was originally video, so I'm sorry for that because they didn't download nicely into PDF format. But we converted all of our ideas and our low fidelity wireframes into a prototype that we built in Adobe XD. I wanted to give sort of a glimpse into how convoluted things can get when you're trying to design an application. So this is just a shot of our Adobe XD board. I tried to sort of organize it so it wasn't all over the place. But this just gives an overview into all of the different boards that we did and all of the different functions that we wanted our prototype to have. After we created our prototype, we then wanted to test it to see if it was a good solution to the frustrations and issues that we saw in our user studies. So we conducted 6 participants who are all people around us in our social circles, our classmates, and the prototype was presented to them, and we asked them to conduct specific tasks to see how easily they could complete those tasks. And then after the testing, we had a survey sent out to them where the participants could rate the features of the application, and were also asked to give feedback and suggestions. This gives a little overview into our results. And you can see the biggest issue or area of concern that we had here was navigation. So while they liked other features such as the community trade center and being able to contact sellers and watch live videos of sellers and things like that, they had issues getting around the app and using the app. And one of the main reasons that we saw this is because a lot of the links weren't working in Adobe XD. So this is just a caution that it's also important when you're conducting usability tests that you have a workable solution so that people aren't fumbling trying to get through your test and your prototype. This is a little glimpse of things like the profile page and the settings page. And these were some design changes that were made as a result of this. So we added an option down there in red to cancel the subscription, which was called out in our user studies, as well as a place to like add your payment information, your billing address, and things such as that. So it's really important when you're designing an app that you have really every single function that a user can need to accomplish. And these are just some of our lessons learned. But I wanted to go a bit over. I think I'm running short on time here, but I also wanted to give a little bit about my experience in the program. I completed the program back in May, the HCDE program. It was an amazing program that really helped lay your foundation in both user research, design, as well as testing, those designs. So it's a holistic approach that the professors tried really hard to sort of instill the full process from research all the way down to evaluation. When we talked a little bit about how intimidating a little bit it can be with all of the tools and options out there for you, but it's important to really be open to learning and being open to trying out a bunch of different things. So as you go through the program, I want you to feel sort of inspired to just try out a bunch of different things, a bunch of different tools, be creative and just find things that work for you and sort of build off of that and do the best that you can. Thank you everyone for listening to this.
Thank you very much, Kamari. I want to give the audience a chance to ask a couple questions. Any questions for Kamari?
I just have a quick question.
Go ahead.
So in the design process, at what point do you come up with a final product since the steps are usually iterated? At what point do you say this is the right one?
That really, I think, depends based off of your constraints and the type of environment that you're in. So say you're working in a work environment, a professional environment, usually you'll have more time to iterate. You'll have a longer length of the project as well as more resources. But when you're in a research-based setting, such as a class, you're based off of your time constraints of when projects are due. So you want to try to get as much iteration in that you can and address the issues that come up in your next iterations, because often you won't have like 1 or 2 years to sort of work on a project and develop it holistically and go through numbers and numbers of iterations and testing.
Okay, thank you.
I want to have a question in terms of how this program or the experience in this program help you land a job at Google.
Sorry, can you say that for me one more time?
I said how this program or your experience at the program help you land a job at Google.
Oh, yes. I just recently got hired on as a technical product expert. And essentially what we do is take really novel and niche issues. So the issues that aren't previously documented that users are having with the search platform and working with engineering to develop solutions to these problems. So really what helped me throughout this program was developing a deep empathy for the user, for our fellow community, people that we're testing with, and being able to understand the user's problems. Because at the crux of understanding the user problems, that sets you up for your research, for your design, and for your testing. But you have to have a deep understanding of what your user's problem actually is. And that's something that the program helped us with a lot, is really conducting that research, understanding our users' behaviors, their frustrations, and their issues, so that we can go forward to develop design. to their problems. So it's really about building empathy for your user, which the program really drills into you through the iterative process.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Cameron. We're gonna go for the next one presentation. I'm gonna share my screen. I think this is one from Abriel, but she cannot make it, but she did make a video about her experience at Spotify.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Abril Gomez-Villa. I'm very happy to be here. And I just want to say thank you to Dr. Peng for inviting me and let me share my summer internship experience in Spotify. So let's get started with the presentation. Well, today I'm just going to share a little bit about myself, and I also want to share about my professional experience and some recommendations for you. A little bit about myself. I'm an international student. I'm from Mexico City. I have a bachelor degree in psychology. Currently, I'm studying my last semester in a Master of Human-Centered Design and Engineering here at the University of Michigan, Dearborn, and I'm really excited. And during the summer and my professional experience within UX, I did a summer internship for Spotify, which was amazing. And also I have 5 years of experience in human resources. Basically, I was a headhunter and I conducted interviews and I recruit the best talent for companies. And if you want to connect with me and if you have more questions at the end of this presentation, please feel free to connect with me. Here's my email and also here's my Instagram. So please feel free just to send me an invitation or send me an email and I will be happy to answer all of your questions. First, I want to explain a little bit what is a user experience researcher. And this is amazing for me because as a user experience researcher, you are very important within a company because you are the one that will help identify the problems and the challenges and validate or invalidate assumptions or patterns and commonalities across the users. And what we do is that we understand users' needs, goals, behaviors, mental models, and everything that is behind all of that in order to provide actionable and meaningful data-driven insights to the company and to the team that represent the voice of multiple users. So basically our work in a company, especially within a product design team, is to be and represent the users through the whole journey. And there are different types of research methodologies to gather both qualitative and quantitative research data. And basically our day-to-day is to conduct these research studies, and you can use a variety of methods like surveys, direct studies, interviews, focus groups, usability testing, task analysis, you name it. And your everyday within a company is that we are working closely with a cross-functional teams of data scientists, product managers, engineers, developers, other user experience designers or researchers. And you are going to help them to test their product or the prototype to improve the product definition or to drive and improve the business goals. About my internship in Spotify, this was an amazing opportunity to work within one of the most amazing technology companies. And my role was user experience research intern. I work in the area of personalization, which in Spotify is basically like the area that is focusing on customize all the listening experience for users of Premium. So here, my day-to-day was about conducting stakeholders and client interviews to know what do they want to test or help them identifying problems or research. And I work closely with product team to define and identify research objectives. And these teams, as I already mentioned, in my team, we have many data scientists, developers, engineers, product managers, other researchers, UX designers, who was a cross-functional team of people. And together we develop a well-crafted research plan with clear research objectives. And I have to write usability research screeners and discussion guides. I have to recruit the participants for the studies. I have to, it was like, for example, interviews of if I did an unmoderated test in user testing or a focus group or a survey, I need to collect that data and I need to analyze data and translate all of that information and all the findings into valuable insights that can be turned into actionable ideas that generate impact within that team. And my work was not only about to say like, hey, I did this interview or I test this prototype and I shared this playlist with some participants and these are my findings. It was not only do that, it was that I really need to translate all of that information and I need to provide insights that become or to provide like an impact for the team. It was more about giving them recommendations, ideas, suggestions of if we need additional research or if they were in the wrong or in the right direction. And all the time I was there in every single meeting, helping them and represent the users, the voice of the users. So also I have to present and communicate my findings within the team, within the company, in a very simple and compelling and engaging way, which is storytelling. And also I have to create a deck and a written report of the findings and the whole process of the entire research that I did. If they want to replicate the research or if the stakeholders or other area of the team need my information or my research because they were doing something similar. So basically that was my work. And if you are thinking that you want to be a user researcher, you need to know that there are many skills that are required for this work or job because you need to be or having very great time management and organizational skills because you will be conducting multiple research projects at the same time. Normally you have 3 or 4 projects, so you need to be very organized and you need to manage your time very good because you will be having meetings with many teams and also conducting interviews or surveys or whatever. And sometimes that's like really complicated if you don't organize your time well. Also, you need to have great communication skills because you will be working with stakeholders and the design teams with multiple areas of the company. And also you are working all the time with participants. So you need to have great communication skills to answer questions and to also ask good questions. Also, I think that is the greatest thing to have empathy because you really need to connect with your participants or your users in order to understand them, or understand their expectations, their frustrations, their goals, their motivations. And because having an empathy will help you resonate better with them and help you develop solutions to the real users. Also, you need to have great problem-solving skills because you will need to think critically about what questions you need or you are trying to answer for the team you're working with. And your research can help you select the appropriate methodology. So you really need to be able to do that. And you should be curious about it because you are going to be able to ask amazing questions and be able to be in the entire process of designing a product. So you can discover many meaningful insights. So you need to be curious. And also, and finally, you need to have amazing collaboration skills as well as independent skills because as I already mentioned, as a UX researcher, you will collaborate with a lot of cross-functional teams and also you will be able to work with them all the time. You're also independently executing your research and then just sharing insights with the entire process. So that's really important. And finally, I just want to mention that is your work to keep studying and keep motivating yourself and expand your research knowledge. The master will be great and it will give you many opportunities to do your own research in every single class, following the human-centered design methodology, and that's great because it's exactly the same that you will be doing in a real company. But it's your work and it's about you to obtain more foundational skills and create a portfolio of all of your academic projects. That's really important because that's part of the recruiting process. You need to put together all your work because in the interview they will ask you that, so that's really helpful. And also something that is really important is that you do this with the tools that the university is already providing. Behance or Adobe Portfolio are the ones that work better. And I will say that you also should be able to apply to all the job positions and create a networking using LinkedIn. That's very helpful. That's how I start connecting with a lot of people and I found this qualified opportunity. And finally, we have Coursera. I think that your master is not enough. You need to go out there and see what other tools or what other certifications or topics are relevant for the work or the job position that you are trying to apply. So go out there, there are many resources that will help you to expand your user research knowledge. So thank you everyone for listening to my experience. I really appreciate having you here and listen to me. So if you have any other question, I will be happy to talk to you with more detail about it. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Abril. She's not here, so we won't be able to ask questions, but her email is in here. If you have any questions you want to reach her, so here's the email. I think it should be edu. I think we have a little bit time left. We still have one video, I think one video to go through. So this is from James Spence, who is an experienced lead at Ford, and she is also not in here, but let's look at the video first.
Hi, I'm James Spence, an experienced lead at Ford Motor Company with a focus on omni-channel experiences, meaning I work on experiences our users have with our vehicles that both have an in-vehicle and off-board component. I am currently pursuing a Master's of Human-Centered Design and Engineering at University of Michigan Dearborn in order to grow and stay competitive in this space. While I couldn't be with you in person today, I pre-recorded this presentation to speak on my experiences in this program and as to why you may want to pursue a degree in human-centered design and engineering as well. Reason number one to pursue a degree in human-centered design and engineering is that everything is designed. Every single product, app, service, and system that you either love or maybe you hate was designed by someone. And the application of human-centered design and engineering, or HCDE, probably has a lot to do with why or how much you love or hate something that was designed. Really, HCDE is equal to how well the designers and developers of a certain product, app, service, and system understand you or the user, and two, make decisions based on their understanding of you or the user. And this is despite the constant pressures of cost reduction, engineering efficiencies, and time to delivery. Reason number two, you have a place in product development. If you have any interests, talents, or experience in the arts, humanities, or social sciences, then you have a place here. There's an HCDE revolution happening, and it's happening across all industries with engineering. Really, the job opportunities are endless, as the scope of engineering is being continually expanded, redefined, and refocused on the user. Within product development, you can be an advocate for the user and influence design decisions that impact the user. Reason number three, you will be able to transcend outdated organizational silos. While pursuing this program won't necessarily turn you into a designer or an engineer if you're not one already, you will, however, gain empathy for both designers and engineers, begin to speak the language of both designers and engineers, and be equipped with introductory skills utilized by both designers and engineers. Your unique understanding of both of these disciplines, supported with the application of HCD methodologies, will enable you to transcend organizational silos that inevitably develop in product development organizations in pursuit of what's right for the user. So no more, this isn't my job, we're not equipped to do this. It's, we're going to work together and collaboratively figure this out because it's what's right. And now, based on my personal experiences with the program, why you might want to pursue a degree in human-centered design and engineering at University of Michigan Dearborn. Reason number one, it's still new. This is still a new program at the University of Michigan Dearborn, and you could have a hand in shaping it. And just like in industry, you, your cohort, and your professors will be figuring out the so what's and what's next for this program together. You will also have the unique opportunity to set the bar of what's expected from this program versus living up to someone else's. Reason number two, diversity. The students and staff are incredibly diverse from one another in terms of their educational backgrounds, academic achievements, industry experience and connections, and culture. You might even learn more from who you're working with versus what you're working on. Reason number three, Collaboration meets practical application. Throughout this program, you are given the opportunity to conduct several semester-long team projects. And this is to explore the areas you're passionate about, exercise learned HCD methodologies, collaborate with your classmates, and begin to build or strengthen your UX UI portfolio. Reason number 4, new skills and tools. Throughout this program, you will be able to leverage the skills and tools you are already proficient in for both you and your teams to be successful, while also adding more to your HCDE tool belt. Skills such as user-centered research methodologies, visual communication, data analysis and visualization, and academic reading and writing. Tools, but not limited to, Miro, Adobe XD, Adobe After Effects, and Tableau. And finally, reason number 5, an online option. University of Michigan Dearborn caters its master's programs to working professionals. So you can expect that in-person classes are typically scheduled from 6 to 9 p.m. Or you have the option to complete this program entirely online, no matter where you live, for increased flexibility. Thank you so much for joining this session today. I hope that hearing about my personal experiences within the program are helpful for your consideration of pursuing a degree in human-centered design and engineering. You are absolutely welcome to reach out to me with any specific questions regarding this program. You can email me at jespen@umich.edu. Thank you.
Let's also thank you, Jane, and her email. She said her email, and if you have any questions and you want to reach out to her, to do so after this workshop. I think we have only 7 minutes left. I think I have a little bit several slides, but I think we won't be able to do the in-person, the hands-on activities. I think a lot of speakers talking about the human-centered design, we talk so much about the user and what their needs and how to solve or how to deal with this user needs. So one thing that's very important in human-centered design is to frame the design question. That is to say, if you don't have the design question understand correctly, so whatever you do in the following steps might not actually solve the design challenge. And one of the ways that you can frame your design question is to look at the 3 specific elements in terms of who the product you actually design for, what are their needs, and what are the insights. And whenever you're starting to look at the design challenge question, you always want to have your user on your mind. And then after that, you will do a lot of user research. And in our classes, we'll introduce different type of user research methods. And one example as shown in here is about, for the current situation, if you want to have students such as the elementary school kids in school to have in-person learning, and their needs might be to protect them from COVID and also to have a good and safe in-person learning experience. And if you do a lot of user research, some of the insights by taking the information you gained from the user research might be the students do not want to have this online learning for a long time because it might not be good for their social and learning environment. And it's also possible for the students and the teachers to get COVID. So we want to have some type of protection gears or protection equipment to help them to have safe and in-person learning at school. And for this specific example, we can frame the design challenge in terms of using the how might we statement. So it could be how might we design personal protection equipment for students and teachers for in-person learning at school. And usually when we do offering our design challenge questions, we usually need to fine-tuning or look at the questions and even go back to the user research to see or to check whether this design question is actually correctly framed. And then if we do more user research, or you can reframe this as how might we provide a good and safe in-person learning environment. By comparing the previous statement, the next one might give you a broad perspective in terms of from the solution point of view, how do you want to provide a safe in-person learning environment, but rather just focus on personal protection, PPE. Another thing I want to quickly to go through is to so-called ideation. And one of the common practice is so-called brainstorming, that is to generate as many ideas as possible. After you have a lot of ideas, then you can, using, for example, affinity diagram to put them into different categories. When they are in different categories, you can try to identify the advantages of each idea, the good ones, and then they potentially can develop into different concepts. And then this can be selected in terms of the best ones can be go into the next stages in terms of prototyping and testing. And one particular idea generation is so-called reverse brainstorming. So it might be crazy in terms of to making to solve the problem. We first actually trying to make it worse. So this can be potentially trick our brains to think in new ways. One particular example is that, for example, if you're at home, you won't be able to concentrate due to some of the noise at home. And you first are trying to make it worse, trying, for example, turning the volumes up, shout when talking, keep everyone in one room, or create lots of echoes. And then the next step is to make it better by flipping the statements in the previous, when you come up with the making worse. So it could be, instead of turn the volume up, you can turn volumes down, or you can ask people to wear earphones, or instead of shouting when talking, you can whisper while talking. Instead of keep everyone in one room, you can keep everyone in separate rooms. Instead of create lots of echoes, you can insulate the walls. So I think due to time constraint, we won't be able to do the hands-on activities for idea generation or framing your problems. I think I would like to stop sharing here. And if you want to have this material and also have the slides link in the chat, George, do you want to have some closing statement for this event?
All right. Thank you, Feng. I would like to thank everyone who attended this meeting. I want to thank also our students and previous students who also presented their work. It is amazing. I just said, wow, I love what they are doing. I'm enjoying this thinking outside of the box and the creativity of our students. I just can't wait to see how far they will go. I would like to thank my colleagues, Feng, who took the leadership on this workshop, Delian, and Sarah, who also presented. I would like to tell you, if you have any questions regarding this program, please contact the undergraduate, graduate program, or in general about human-centered design. If you think that we should organize more workshops, we can do that. Your feedback is very important. It's part of the human-centered design approach, is hearing back from you. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks, and have a great day and a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.